This week's episode is brought to you in partnership with Zero Procure. Zero Procure takes the time to understand your business, whether in hospitality or any other industry, and do all the heavy lifting when it comes to procurement. I'm delighted that their support will keep this show accessible and free to listen to wherever you access your podcasts. Please get in touch with them for a chat. Just click on the link in the show notes or visit their site at zeroprocure.com/podcast. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Greg Früchtenicht, Director of Partnerships at the rather wonderful Saira Hospitality. Coming up on today's show, Greg demonstrates some innovation around job searching.
So the role with Saira Hospitality came about from, kind of misguided, attempted drunken video call.
Phil proposes a unique type of revolution. Let's get the Phil Streets together. And Greg tells us it's not all sunshine and rainbows in the classroom.
From one of the classrooms in the distance, we just heard this almighty, what sounded like a ruckus.
All that and so much more as Greg talks us through his wonderful journey so far. And we get a fabulous overview of what Saira are getting up to and what they stand for. Greg's journey is a cracking example of what can happen when you stay true to your values, something that underpins everything he does, and he demonstrates all this with a natural storyteller flair. A huge thank you to him for sharing his story. As always, a sneaky reminder to keep sharing the podcast as far as you can. Let's get the world talking about our amazing industry. Enjoy. And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Greg Früchtenicht. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Phil. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome.
And great pronunciation as well. Sorry, I just wanted to say great pronunciation.
Thank you. Yes, well, I wasn't well, we did obviously talk about that before we came on. You see, the sunshine has just come right into my eyes now. Now I can't see anything. But
I think that's a good omen.
Yeah, it was. I just felt that the in your name was going to play into my roots, because obviously nobody in the world can pronounce Loch like a Scots person. It's Loch, isn't it, for the vast majority?
Let me give it a try. Loch.
No. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, you're now welcome over the border.
There's maybe a bit more Liverpudlian that on my side, but crackers.
Yeah. How's things anyway? How are you?
Really well, thanks. Yeah, doing very well. I actually spent this morning in a bit of a Spotify rabbit hole thanks to your name. Because I was just looking back on a few of your previous episodes and stumbled across Phil Streets, the producer of trippy space trap music.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should talk about that, shouldn't I? Really, no. That's definitely not me.
Well, I thought maybe it seems that a lot of the music that Phil makes is quite instrumental, so I thought maybe there could be some kind of collaboration between you guys in the future.
I feel like let's get the Phil Streets together and let's see what can happen.
A bit of freestyling or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you today? That's a beautiful looking wall you have behind you.
Thank you very much. I wish it were my wall. It's actually my girlfriend's wall.
Right.
But I'm in London, where I'm living at the moment, and kind of working, having been kind of in and out of London for the past 6 years, really. Originally, I'm from the Lake District up in the northwest. So
right.
London is a second home to me, but my spirit and my soul, I'd say, is most of the time up in the hills and the lakes.
Right. Yeah. Do you have the same issue? Well, not issue. The same thing for me every time I go back to Scotland. I'm like, it's nice to be back. But then I'm also, when I come back down to London, I'm like, yeah, it's good to be back amongst the buzz and especially I'm a massive foodie and I just think that London, we're so lucky to be in London because it's just got so much going on the food scene.
Yeah, completely agree with you. Yeah, it's funny, kind of my mindset can shift quite quickly when I'm back home in the lakes and I feel instantly, back in a whole different kind of peace. Because I'm very at peace in London, but it's a different type of peace. Like you say, it's a peace amongst, momentum and kinetics and, people and talking and all of that, which is amazing. And it definitely fuels my kind of energy. But then also being up in the middle of nowhere is also just blissfully peaceful and simple. So I guess we're both lucky to have two options, really.
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So tell the world what it is that you do, because I absolutely love your job title.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's quite broad. So the title is Director of Partnerships. That really strays into director of many small and exciting things based on the role that I'm currently doing at the moment, which is with a very, very small non-profit called Saira Hospitality.
Yeah.
Effectively, our kind of main operation is to connect local communities in London and around the world, but we'll discuss London today most probably. We connect local communities in London with hospitality businesses, and we effectively bridge a gap between the two via education and training. So we create hospitality schools that are hyper focused on inspiring, training, and basically creating a new pipeline of entry level talent in various different roles within hospitality businesses.
Fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like it's one that's needed right now, especially from even just from the pure hospitality perspective in terms of we need more people to come and work in this industry. But two, in terms of elevating communities as well and giving them roots to work. And whether that ends up being in hospitality or not, you're elevating people with skills and knowledge, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think, we know, having been in the industry, the hospitality industry, that just having a proximity to the energy and what's needed to work in the hospitality industry gives you so much further confidence just and life skills and all of those individual pieces of personality traits that are so important. I certainly developed a lot of mine through working in hospitality when I was younger, and I think that a lot of the training that we do, it is focused on those life skills and those soft skills, if you like, to make sure that people are ready to enter an industry which is fast paced, it's demanding, but it's also extremely rewarding because you are faced with such a cross section of society and individual personalities. And I think integration with other humans is what makes the world go round, obviously, and especially in hospitality, it's the most important factor.
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, I mean, it sounds like a really, really interesting job, and we'll get into that later. But I'm really interested to learn more about how you ended up here and kind of take us all the way back, really, into how did you get into the industry in the first place?
My first kind of tiptoe into the hospitality industry was at the tender age of, I think it was 14, maybe 15. I'm not sure if that's legal. But I was there.
We mean 16, 16 or 18,
yeah,
but yeah, depending on where you're listening to this.
But it was a really small, it was the local co-op. So, but a kind of independently owned cooperative store in Penrith, my hometown. And I was working in the cafe as a pot washer. I wouldn't say that I was a shy individual, but I certainly didn't have much exposure to the outside world beyond my friends at school and my family and that extended kind of community. So yeah, I was pot washing, doing the dishwasher to make a bit of extra money. I was going on a rugby tour, so I needed to try and fund that a little bit from my own pocket. So I was working there, and one day I managed to have a little experience on the front desk where I was serving lots of mostly kind of 70 to 90-year-old lovely ladies scones and cups of tea. And I just remember absolutely loving it. Just chit chat, small talk, mostly about the weather or something that was going on in the local town. And
we can go there if you want. I'm renowned for talking about the weather on this show, so if it makes you feel at home,
maybe we'll wrap up with the weather. That's
okay.
We can do a forecast for anyone that's, even though this is going to be retrospective, but anyway. Yeah. So I was working there. Like I say, very, very soft kind of, but it was obviously hospitality in its essence. And then off the back of that, went off to university and then did the classic where my summers were spent working in various different local operators. So second experience was quite an interesting one, working the bar of a local camping and caravan site in the Lake District, which again, as we were talking about before, hospitality kind of giving you access to lots of different types of people and personalities. That certainly was an interesting avenue for me because it was lots of holiday makers coming from the Northeast and Liverpool and Manchester, and quite big drinkers, although they were there with their families. And it was sometimes my job felt like part-time bar person and part-time bouncer security because there was lots of scraps and some interesting things.
I can relate. That's exactly where I got my start after university. I worked in Haggerston Castle Holiday Park as a bartender, and on the weekends where it was Yeah, we used to just get like bus loads of people from Glasgow coming down, and you knew that you were going to have to roll your sleeves up that weekend.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of get ready for the storm to come.
Yeah. What's the
But
most
again, you learn a
the
lot.
scariest thing that ever happened to me is telling a Glasgow guy who was blind drunk that I wasn't going to serve him another drink. Like the anticipation of what's going to happen next was already live in my head at the time, and yeah, thankfully I had 4 big burly blokes around me at the time, so that they were able to deal with any physical element that might have happened. I'm not the most physical guy when it comes to that, but yeah, it's certainly, I think it's a great experience though. Like it's a really
Mm,
great grounding to start seeing life in action.
exactly, and it's completely unscripted,
Yeah,
which I think is amazing, and also the sense of teamwork that I gathered from working particularly actually at that caravan park was incredible because, like you say, some of the shifts were quite stressful. I had that exact same experience pretty much every night that I worked there, and there
yeah,
was always people not too happy with the decision to not serve them any more alcohol, but the bond and the connection that our team made was incredible, and we were all what 19, 18, 19 years old.
yeah,
So our life experience was small, but I think when combined together, we were a real unit, and I still don't think I've felt a team vibe or connection like I did at that caravan park, which again is complete testament to how working in the industry, whether you're in housekeeping or whether you're on the front desk or whether you're behind the bar, that sense of community that you feel within a hospitality business is
yeah.
second to none, in my opinion. Um,
Completely agree.
and then yeah, when kind of after university, then was strayed away from the hospitality side of things and went more into travel. So I was working with a luxury kind of experiential tour operator called Black Tomato, who do some amazing travel experiences around the world. Really rewarding job in the fact that I learned a lot about branding and about kind of again partnerships, which is really what I'm kind of into, how we can form connections between companies and individuals that then have a great impact on both the business, but also increasingly more on kind of society and communities. And then COVID hit, as it did for us all, just as a bit of a weird time. Actually, I'd just handed in my notice at Black Tomato and was due to move to a new company, and then the new offer to the new company was rescinded. So I found myself back in the Lake District. So I left London, didn't really have much down here at the time. So I thought, well, other than friends and family, but obviously you couldn't really spend time with them. So I thought I'll go back up to the motherland and take a bit of time out, tail between my legs. But that actually was a incredibly transformative year that I spent up there. I was up at home, and then kind of revisited hospitality in it from a very different angle from being on the operations side. So while I was at home for that 12 months, it became quite obvious that hospitality businesses were obviously struggling with everything that was happening with COVID.
Mm.
And myself and a friend he'd also been furloughed. And so we had lots of time on our hands, but we'd seen that in the wake of COVID, or as COVID was just beginning to develop and build up, there were a few hospitality businesses which we really admired from a brand perspective and experience perspective. We saw that a few great brands were actually kind of putting out some quite dodgy messaging around the pandemic, mostly sending messages such as, we love you, NHS. Thank you so much for all of the hard work you're doing. Here's 15% off a hotel stay. And these were operators that were probably around 400, £500 per night. So
Right. Yeah.
we looked at that and thought, well, which ICU nurse is ever going to be able to afford to go and stay there, even with a 10-15% discount? So
Yeah.
it almost seemed like COVID washing as opposed to greenwashing. It was a chance it seemed to be some hotels were using an opportunity to kind of use that as a comms message, which we just felt was really wrong,
Yeah.
and a bit short sighted. So myself and a friend of mine, we effectively started calling up a few hotels and just saying, look, we've seen the message that you're putting out. Would it not be more meaningful to maybe give away some stays for free rather than offering them out at discounted rates, because we know that people can't afford them? So that idea was very much kind of how we can support hotels in putting out the right message in these times of difficulty, but also how they can support people that really need the opportunity, which at that time obviously was the NHS amongst everyone else that was suffering. So we liked the idea of, rather than each individual hotel or restaurant going out and putting out a kind of mission or statement of their own, could we create this kind of industry-wide thank you or appreciation kind of society almost, whereby we onboarded lots of different hotels and they were all able to distribute rooms out for free to say a really kind of heartfelt and meaningful thank you. And so that idea became an initiative called Nights on Us, which is something that we're still running actually on the side at the moment. And yeah, the basic premise is, we know that hotels enrich lives for the people that are fortunate enough to be able to afford to go and stay there. Why don't we help them enrich the lives of people that save lives, so people on the front line of the NHS? And so we took that year of the initial COVID wave to kind of work on this little project, which was really rewarding. And actually it was pretty inspiring to see how many hotels were willing to work with us. Yeah, a lot. We had a lot of great contributions. We got over 7,000 rooms donated in the first year, and that was from amazing operators everywhere, from the Hoxton to the Shangri-La to the Rosewood, and yeah, they were distributing rooms out for free to people that needed it the most. So that was my kind of segue back into the hospitality world, having been out of it for a while, and it was a segue in that the angle was very much, well, people do give a shit in the hospitality world. Pardon my language.
Yeah.
And that was an opportunity to think, well, it's a great industry to give back, even when times are hard. And that was quite inspiring for me to see an industry kind of mobilize in that way.
Yeah, it's massively uplifting, isn't it? To and I suppose as well, because when we're all busy and we all kind of crack on with our lives and our businesses and all of these sorts of things, it kind of takes priority, and you maybe don't think of every other part of your life as you would normally when you're not operating at 100 million miles an hour. COVID kind of gave us an opportunity to just take a step back and remind ourselves perhaps that we're all human at the end of the day. And yes, some of these humans are at the helm of some of the most amazing properties that you'll ever see in the hotel world, around the world. But actually a small gesture like that, which it is a small gesture in the grand scheme of things, is carries massive weight. And that's the thing that I kind of, it's difficult to find many positives out of the COVID scenario, but it is the thing for me that we all kind of just remembered that we're all in this game of life together. It's not about trying to compete. It's not about trying to be better than somebody else. There are instances where that's necessary, but it's not often necessary in business. We can all rise together.
Completely agree.
So I'll just end the podcast there. Actually, that's
inspirational. No, it's so true, and I think and the small things that happen. Even, and this was kind of one of the catalysts for us coming up with Nights on Us in the first place as well. Was we were all going out and clapping on our front doorsteps to celebrate the NHS, which was amazing, and I think I built better connections with my neighbours via that than I had for years, because it was an interesting way for communities and society to come together, even that small gesture.
Yeah.
But yeah, how else can well, if the businesses and the kind of organizations that are suffering almost as badly as the NHS were at that time can still mobilize and have the clarity and kind of foresight to think a bit more altruistically, then that for me, and obviously for yourself as well, it just shows that the industry is something that, or it is an industry that just has a lot to show for and a lot to care about. And I think it was, like you say, incredibly rewarding to be able to be a part of that and just work with some people that really had kind souls and wanted to help.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
And it's a return to a hospitality mentality, really, isn't it? I mean, you would expect that in the world of hospitality, you can find people who care, who really put other people first, because that's basically what we do.
Exactly. So it's a kind of cyclical, beautiful thing, and that kind of strays into the work that I'm doing at the moment, and in a whole different type of giving back and a whole different type of kind of manner. But yeah, I think I hadn't considered for years to be in the hospitality industry. I was more focused on travel and almost more of a tourism element. But yeah, then having this experience with these hotels up and down the UK then made me realize, okay, well, I need to be more involved in the hospitality industry because it was rewarding, and it just kind of lit my fire to then go and step back into the industry in a whole different way.
Yeah. It's a funny one, that, isn't it, actually? I've never really thought about this until this precise moment when you talk about the fact that I wasn't really in hospitality. It was more tourism. But actually, one doesn't exist without the other, right? So there's a monumental crossover between the two industries.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think for me, hospitality is more, or working in the hospitality industry as I do now again, is you have much more of a direct impact, I think, than I ever have in terms of, I was working in travel and managing brand partnerships, and the access that our team had at Black Tomato was to sell trips, sell amazing experiences. But in terms of the kind of face-to-face, human-to-human interaction, it was purely just a sales process. Not knocking it in any way, because that's how it has to be. We didn't have people, for example, from Black Tomato hosting trips necessarily. Whereas the actual true for hospitality, for me, the true word is that face-to-face, human-to-human kind of connection. And I think that there's no better way to experience that than hotels, which is predominantly kind of where we're working at the moment. Although, in the future we'll be working more with restaurants and things like that. But yeah, I just think that the way that a hotel stay can change someone's life, which I do believe it can, also needs to be able to transfer into changing other people's lives, not just the guests. So if we can use hotels as a conduit and a vehicle to change other people's lives, not just the people that are fortunate enough to afford to stay at those great hotels, then truly, again, we're kind of wrapping that up in that true essence of what hospitality is, not just for the guest, but for the place that they inhabit and the people outside the front door.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a return to very much having a community mindset, right, about wherever your property sits, whether you're in Park Lane, Southwark, Dalton, whatever, or whatever part of the world you sit in. It's about embracing what's around you rather than just putting bums on seats and filling roles with anyone that comes along, kind of thing.
Exactly, and certainly, where possible, avoiding the temptation, I'd say, to poach or fly people in from overseas, which is really where Saira Hospitality, the company I'm now with, is. That's where the essence and the kind of the whole reason that we exist came from. That we know that there is a huge issue with poaching in the industry, and there's also a huge issue with if visas permit, which obviously they're not at the moment in the UK, flying people in from overseas, whereas it's actually slightly insane because literally open the front door and there will be a wealth of amazing individuals out there, even though it doesn't seem like it at the moment because it's harder than ever to find them. They are out there. It's just a case of spending the time to get to know that community with which you inhabit, find the people that can refer these great people through to you because they are there. It's just that they probably haven't considered a career in the industry before. So it's our job, and I think it's hospitality's job at the moment more broadly to almost do our own little PR campaign about how great it is to be in the industry, not sugarcoating it, because it's not a walk in the park. We know that, but if you have that essence and you have that kind of personality and that ambition, then it's a great place for anyone to work that's willing to roll their sleeves up and kind of get to know and meet some amazing people and amazing kind of different businesses.
Yeah, I mean, what other industry can you make quick progress just by having a good attitude? I mean, that's literally all you need to climb the ranks. And I completely agree with your statement around we've all got to do our little bit, of PR to elevate the industry and get it out of. This is exactly the reason why the podcast exists, and I've spoken about this so many times. But it's the reason I started this is because I was just getting sick of hearing all of the negative stuff that you hear in the press. That's all that comes out. I mean, that's what the press are there for, right? To sensationalize and sell whatever it is that they're selling. So if that's what they're going to do, then we've got to take control of everything else and just absolutely shout from the rooftops about all of the good stuff that happens, which happens every day in pretty much every single business. And okay, there are some who don't do things quite as well, and we should absolutely hold them to account. But at the same time, there's so many good people in this industry. Let's work together to make, to shout louder and drown out all that crappy noise that comes from mainstream media.
Yeah, and use, I completely agree, and use those amazing figures and amazing personalities as a PR tool. I think that's, and there's a kind of a story or an example of that from the first school that we launched in London, which was earlier this year, whereby the students that we had on board the program, again, I'd say 95% had never worked in the industry before, but for them to, we do a lot throughout the program in terms of having guest speakers come in to speak to the students and tell them what it's like, their life and times of in hospitality, and their journey and things like that. And where possible, we want that to come from the operational teams, the people that have really lived and breathed hospitality, and have a bit of a story to tell. And we were fortunate in the first program we were working with Pan Pacific. That was one of our great partners, and Anne Golden, the general manager, came down to speak to the students on the first week. And, we had a kind of almost like a keynote speech without making it sound too official or stuffy. Yeah. But she just spoke about her experience in the industry and, her journey that she'd been on, which is a fantastic journey. And literally after she'd done her 10-minute discussion, there was literally a line of about 30 students just waiting to speak to Anne and hear more. They were just so inspired, and I'd say maybe the day before that, the students, it was the first week, so the students were still a bit kind of finding their feet, meeting lots of new people, maybe not totally confident, which is our whole role, is to build confidence. But people came alive just hearing this great story from an amazing individual who was being real about the industry. She wasn't saying it's, you're going to sit on your bum all day and do nothing. She was saying it's hard work, but if you are willing, like you say, to put in the energy, have that great personality, you will go far, as Anne has. And I think, hats off to her, and massive thanks to her for being there to tell those stories, because that's what the industry needs. And, it needs it on a kind of macro scale as well. But in our school, just to have a few students listen to people that have those inspiring stories makes a huge difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not even just students that Anne inspires. I was lucky enough I put on an event earlier this year actually, and she was a speaker, or she was on my panel actually. We were discussing whatever it was, people we were discussing, and like you just described there was a line of 30 people who weren't all students who wanted to have a conflab with Anne afterwards, because she's just an absolutely. She's everything that's good about this industry for me. She's a friend of the show. Hope she doesn't mind me saying that as well. She's been on and told her story here as well. And she's just got this real humility around her journey and her story. And I think it's just, she's definitely one that we can all be inspired by.
Thank you, Anne, if you're listening.
That's it.
Should we call her in? Let's dial her in.
Yeah, let's see if she's available. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Hashtag thank you, Anne. There we are. Great stuff.
But yeah, I think that's just to wrap that up. We need more people that entry level or prospective entry level staff can look at and say, I want to be that person in 10 years' time.
Yeah,
that's what we need. Certainly for the work that I do, the more people that we can bring in and tell their story and inspire people, especially when there's this big drought or seemingly a big drought in hospitality kind of talent at the moment, that's where the battle's won and lost, I think, making it seem desirable, but also being realistic. But yeah, if we can tell those stories, I think we're onto a bit of a winner.
Yeah, and I think the key thing with, especially coming back to Anne again, the Anne Golden fan club, is that she backs up words with pragmatism and realism and proper leadership. That you speak to anybody that's worked with her over the years, and they have nothing but good things to say about her. So I think it's absolutely one thing to attract in. It's another thing to ensure that we keep and grow and nurture, and we need proper leadership to be able to make that happen. And part of the problem sometimes is that we all get too busy and we kick that can down the road a little bit because we're just dealing with the here and now. But it's got to be dealt with on a daily basis. You've got to keep inspiring that person, and you've got to give them some tough love sometimes. But help them bounce back stronger, and all of these sorts of things. So yeah, that's
Completely
a
agree.
bit of a rant, maybe, but I don't know. Kind of crossing the line between rant and inspiration. I don't know.
Or inspiration. I'm
Rant
inspired.
inspiration. Excellent. Yes. Anyway, we kind of went off on a tangent a little bit. We're taking you away from your story. You founded this wonderful project in the pandemic. What happened next?
Then what happened next? What happened next was a drunken or an attempted drunken video call,
Okay. Of
which is
course. That's
a nice change of pace for the story. I was whilst Nights on Us is still running, it never has made any money, which obviously means that I wasn't necessarily surviving financially.
yeah.
I was
That's
very
not going to pay your mortgage.
yeah, my soul was nourished, but my body probably wasn't.
Yeah.
So we I was working some other kind of consultancy jobs, which were great. I learned a lot, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. There was no real kind of philanthropic or kind of there wasn't a huge purpose attributed to it. And I was out having some drinks with a friend one night and kind of having a bit of a moan about that and just saying, I really need to either monetize Nights on Us, which we weren't really ever keen on doing because it was just a nice project to do. We didn't want to suddenly have figures on it to make it survive because I think it needs to be an organic kind of initiative.
Mm.
So yeah, it was kind of having a bit of a bitch and a moan with a friend about that, and I was saying I'm doing this other job and it's not really fulfilling me. It's paying me fine, but I don't really necessarily that bothered about that. And then this contact of mine said, "Oh my God, you need to have a conversation with Harsha Lacqua, who is the founder of Saira Hospitality, because she's looking for a director of partnerships to potentially open a school in London, which she's never done before. Because before London, Saira was the actual organisation was just working globally outside of the UK, and this was probably 2 a.m. What a terrible friend to be moaning about work at 2 a.m. on a night out. But anyway, there you go. That's how much it was playing on my mind. I needed to find something that was fulfilling. And so it was like, great, let's FaceTime her. So we tried to FaceTime Harsha, the CEO, about 2 a.m. And thankfully she didn't pick up because I don't think I would have pitched myself quite as well. Or maybe I would have, I don't know, actually, after however many espresso martinis. But anyway, so we tried to call her and she didn't pick up. And then the next day I have a phone call from Harsha and she's like, did you try and call me at 2 a.m. last night? And I was like, maybe. She's like, oh, Katie, the contact that put me in touch, has told me a little bit about you. Let's have a conversation. And was just left that phone call beyond inspired and excited to work on a project like that. And by no means had the job, but there was a process and she was looking for someone to do this role in London. But yeah, I was kind of like, if I don't get this job, I don't know what I'll do, basically, because it sounded so well aligned. It was literally perfect given everything that I had been doing and kind of had ambitions to do in the future. And then so the role with Saira Hospitality came about from kind of misguided attempted drunken video call, and then
Great
kind of and then set off to work from that was a year ago, a couple of weeks back. So yeah, it's been about 12 months I've been with the organization, and really the task that I was set was to take this blueprint that Harsha, the CEO, had been using around the world in creating these schools and make it relevant and successful in London, which was a huge challenge. I've never been in the education space before. I had obviously been in the partnership space before, so had my head around how to work with other organizations, but to achieve something like a school was kind of extremely new to me. So it's been a challenge and kind of some trial and error and all kinds of amazing different learnings that have happened in the past 12 months. But happy to say that we've done it, and we're now we've managed to transition our global model into a model that's more relevant for urban environments, just like London. And yeah, in the future we'll be doing more and more schools in London on a bit of a rolling basis, which is exciting.
Yeah, fantastic, and fair play to you for kind of holding firm as well, because it can be very easy to, I suppose, park your values in pursuit of paying your bills, but actually in the long run, well, it's not even the long run, the short run, medium run, you've landed something which, as you said, is perfectly aligned to who you are as a human. And that means that when you get out of bed in the morning, you feel like you're going to be making a difference every day, right? I mean, that's the beautiful thing about about what you guys are achieving.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. And it feels right. And it feels like also very fortunate, very fortunate to be in this position, because there are many ways for people to exist and survive and kind of, like you say, get up every day and go to work. But this doesn't really feel like a job. It is just kind of everything, which maybe sounds a bit lame and harsher if you listen to this. I'm not saying that just to suck up. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what I think that's what well, I think that's what your career should feel like. And like I say, not everyone's fortunate enough to have that feeling, I don't think so. And it came, I guess it came down to a bit of a very wise friend again during the pandemic. Kind of sent me a simple values tool, to I think we all know our values, but we don't really put them down on paper, and
Yeah.
we don't really action them on a daily basis. Or if we do, then we might need to be prompted. And I certainly did, because I knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be, but I hadn't sat down with a big A3 piece of paper and a Sharpie and said, okay, well, like, this is me. What do I do with that? And I think we actually use that process now at Saira as well, when we're making decisions about who to partner with and decisions to make with the business. We have our values and we know what they are, and we will literally make decisions based on, well, does that align with these five values, or which of those five values does that sit with? And if it doesn't fit with any, then it's not even a consideration. We won't do
Mm.
that whatsoever. So, and I think that's kind of what led me to where I am today, and that's also what I think does lead our team at Saira to make quite good decisions about what's right for the business on the most meaningful level. So I'd recommend anyone that hasn't done that practice before to give it a whirl, especially if you are working in an industry or a job where you're kind of, phoning it in every day and maybe you're not totally inspired. You can do a values test. I mean, you can do them online, or I've got one I can email out if anyone would like it.
I was just going to say the one that you used that helped you. If you are happy to share, I'll stick a link in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah, really straightforward, and yeah, I'll share that with you. But it's basically just, well, I'll share it, but it's kind of creating a shortlist and then refining that shortlist down. It's very pen and paper orientated. It's not like an online test, which I
Yeah, yeah.
personally prefer.
I did the same thing in oh god, 2019, 2018, 19. I had a bit of a wobble on the back of two health diagnoses that I got, and kind of threw me off path a little bit, and saw a life coach, and she put me through a values focused exercise, which was exactly as you say. It was all pen and paper. It wasn't tech orientated in any way, shape, or form. And it all, I remember this very clearly. It's so enlightening about who you really, really are as a human. And the thing that I learned about myself in that moment is that this sounds really, really, probably a bit grandiose, but I wanted to save the world. That was it. That was the thing that underpinned everything else. Now, am I doing that? Not yet, but we're one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, blah blah blah, etc. etc. But yeah, once when you understand who you truly are as a human being, it's much easier to move forward at that point.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's amazing. It's like a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
I've got a friend that, and this makes me laugh, and he still does it to this day. And I think it's funny, but I'm not sure it's the best way to make decisions. He's got this old coin. It's like an old American dollar or something, and if he can't make a decision, he'll flip the coin for whether he does
Fair
something or
enough.
not. And I've seen him do some pretty outrageous things at the mercy of this coin. But this, when you do a values kind of practice, or whatever you want to call it, you can literally say, okay, decision A is in front of me. Does that align, like we say, does that match, or in any way, kind of shape or form, play into who I am and what I believe in? If it
Mm,
doesn't, just don't do it and don't think about it again.
yeah.
Really straightforward. So it is like a little cheat sheet, and I think it's a handy thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, that brings us kind of up to date then, I suppose. So just give us a quick overview as to what your job entails. What do you do?
So, like I say, Saira Hospitality as an organisation, effectively we partner with hospitality businesses that are, yes, in desperate need of finding great new entry level talent, but are also really interested in connecting more deeply with their local community and helping train and educate individuals that otherwise may have been overlooked by the industry. So specifically in London, the way that the model works is that we go out into the hospitality community and we partner with a group of hotels that are looking to do what I've just said. We are, as I say, we're a non-profit, so we're entirely sponsored and funded by these hospitality brands. So they'll put a little bit of budget towards Saira Hospitality, and that's really one of my main roles, is to go out and find those great hospitality businesses. We've worked with some of London's finest so far, including Hoxton, Citizen M, Hilton Bankside, Pan Pacific. Shout out to Anne again. And so we find the great businesses that need to connect more deeply, but also need great talent. We then use that budget to go out into the local community and find individuals that may have been overlooked by the industry previously, or certainly would maybe have overlooked themselves in terms of working in one of these 4 or 5 star kind of lifestyle establishments. We then go out, or I kind of then build a team around that. So find a project manager that's going to be working on the project, hire local trainers that will actually teach the curriculum that we have, and then cast our net incredibly wide out into the local community. So partnering with amazing local non-profits. We work a lot with Crisis, Breaking Barriers. We also work with lots of local housing associations and the Department of Work and Pensions, etc., to find a group of students who, again, may not know it at the start that they'd be great for hospitality, but we can see something in them that will give them the opportunity to not just survive in the industry, but also thrive. And then once we found those individual students, we effectively put them through kind of a 3-stage interview process to make sure that they are the right fit for the hotels that we're partnering with. And then we accept a group of students onto a program. That program runs between 4 and 6 weeks. We teach them all of the individual skills that they need. Like I said, mostly kind of life skills and soft skills, things like communication, building your own brand, understanding what the industry is as a whole. And then we put them through some work experience as well during that program. So they actually go inside the hotel that will essentially be hiring them at the end of the program. And they'll have a week of hands-on work experience where they do a rotation in different departments to understand the ecosystem of the hotel and what all of the functions are. And then after the training is ended, we have a nice graduation ceremony, which is probably the best party I've been to this year. Actually, our graduation in the summer, it was a hoot. It was so much fun. And then we have guaranteed job interviews for our students once they've finished the program. So then they are kind of interviewed with our hotel partners, and then hopefully moving into employment with them. I realize I just mostly described what the business does rather than what I do, but effectively you can kind of plonk me in at any of those
I was
phases.
going to say, it sounds like you kind of have a duty to outreach and also a duty to intake. So it's almost like you're going out and finding partners to work with who want to bring in the next wave of talent from your education, but also it's about working with these other non-profits. And now, does your role look after both of those elements?
Yeah. So when I came on board 12 months ago, it was just me and Harsha, so our founder and CEO. London was my baby. So really what it meant for me was, finding those partners first of all, which freed up some budget so that I could then hire what was then a project manager, but she's now transferred into more of a kind of head of operations role. A fantastic lady called Lisa, who's just, again, you want in a job like this, in an industry like this, you need to align yourself with people that have the same vision and passion, and she is that. So once you get the budget kind of from the hotels, then finding Lisa was key to then basically myself and Lisa went out and did the rest. So finding the students, we had 200 applicants for the first program, which was great, and building relationships with anyone and everyone that we think will be beneficial to our students' learning journey. So, we're partnered with people like Springboard as well, who help us with some e-learning modules for our students. We're partnered with all of those amazing non-profits that we mentioned before. And I mean, there's partnerships coming out of our ears basically, but making sure that everything's relevant to the student. And the first program was really our pilot in London. We hadn't done it before, and we didn't know if we would do it again because it was a whole new model, a whole new market. Previously, we'd worked in Africa, Mexico, the Caribbean, so very different areas where free education is maybe a little bit more enticing when you're in Namibia or you're in the middle of nowhere in Mexico or the Caribbean. So the transition and understanding whether or not what we actually do will be successful and relevant in London was a bit unknown,
Right.
which brought around a lot of workplace anxiety for me, but really not knowing if this was going to happen at all, be successful. I say anxiety, I'd put anxiety in there's probably a better word for it, but whatever the type of anxiety is that makes you throw everything at it so that you want it to work.
Yep.
And
Just
thankfully it was good.
Bit of pressure.
It was pressure, and I think that was really important for us to make it kind of function in London. And the first program was a great success. We had 55 graduates go through the program, and around 40 of them are now working inside kind of these 4 or 5-star hotels in London.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, there has been a list of learnings as long as my arm,
and that's inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the great thing, is that we have such great access to everyone from the hotels that we worked with, to the students, to our trainers, to the other nonprofits, who are all there's a constant dialogue of feedback and improvement coming through to us. So we're very big on ensuring that that's taken into account. And then we move on to create another program, which we're doing. We've got our next program launching in a month's time on the 31st of October, 2022. And all of those learnings that we've taken from the first program have been adapted and rolled into program 2, which is extremely exciting, because it means that it's a slightly refined version of what we did the first time around, whilst the ethos and the impact is still very much the same. And then we keep learning, and we keep rolling, and we do more and more programs in London, so that we can support more and more individuals into great careers, but also so we can support more and more hospitality businesses that we know are still feeling the pinch.
Yeah. No, I mean, it feels to me like it's a real here and now requirement, and it's absolutely needed. And so I take my hat off to you guys for the work you're doing. Yeah, look forward to the next intake and the or what do you call them, cohort? I don't know.
Next cohort.
Yeah. So and wish you all the very best with the next phase of that. But there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on here, and this is the benefit of sending out a form before we go on the because you make it sound like you're this all conquering guy that does all these good things, but didn't you scam the NHS?
I didn't know if you'd pick that one up or not. We we almost did. Well, almost scammed actually a group of lovely, amazing frontline workers. Obviously not on purpose.
Yes, let's just underline at the moment I'm being humorous here. There's this is not in your makeup. This is not something that you absolutely did, but it was just something that was taken massively out of context.
This was and I think it's important it's an important thing to mention, because at the time when this happened, it felt like the world had ended, and it was I wouldn't say it was a mistake, but it was an oversight that will happen to anyone that's trying to start their own thing. So it's like a real example of, that could have been handled better. But in essence, when I'll try and make it as quick as possible, but the way that Nights and Us, the NHS kind of appreciation platform, ran was we gathered lots of rooms. So 7,000 rooms from leading hotels up and down the UK. We then, once we'd gathered all of those hotels, we put them, or those room nights rather, we put them into a kind of a CRM platform, which was like a gifting, like a voucher platform. And obviously all of the room nights that we acquired from these hotels were distributed for free. We weren't taking any commission or margin or anything like that on top.
Yeah.
And we had this big launch date in mind. I think it was the 5th of September, 2020, if I remember correctly. Big launch date in mind, where we sent out a newsletter to all of our subscribers. So we built a big network of subscribers within the NHS. We worked with local kind of trusts to get that. But anyway, we had a huge distribution list. We obviously had 7,000 room nights to give away, and we had about 20,000 people on the mailing list. So there were some people that would be disappointed, unfortunately. Anyway, so we sent out this email with what we thought. Well, they were very clear instructions that said, when you log onto the gifting voucher platform, you have to put this code in. Otherwise, you will get charged the full amount. So please do put in this voucher code. It'll bring it down to zero. Lo and behold, a large amount of very excited frontline nurses don't always read the email when they realize it's the time to kind of get this free benefit. So at the end of, actually probably after about 4 hours of the platform being live, I think it was in the thousands and thousands of pounds we had suddenly been paid for.
Right.
So yeah, people just hadn't read the email properly and were buying vouchers left, right, and centre. We only became aware of that because I got a very angry phone call from one of the nurses that had won or got a voucher saying, "Oh, you've scammed me. You charged me all this money. What's going on? Am I going to get it back?" And I was kind of, "Okay, Greg, remain calm. We'll deal with this. I'm sure it'll be somewhere." And then kind of said, "I'll be back in touch with you in the next hour. Let me just have a look into it." And at that point, I realized that we hadn't set up a bank account to the CRM system. So I was like, "Oh my God, this money has just gone. Like, it's just flown off into the ether and no one's ever going to get it back. And I'm going to go to prison." And but thankfully, the tech team that we worked with that gave us access to the CRM system was able to refund everyone their money. Right. So no one lost any. And we certainly
you scammed no one.
No, scammed no one, but definitely had probably the most stressful 5 or 6 hours of my life trying to understand how we were going to make this up to them if we couldn't get the money back. We were like, what the hell are we going to do? So again, problem solving and learning on the job, which I think, starting anything up from scratch is always going to come about in some way.
Yeah. And what I think as well, sometimes you do things with such positive intent that and of course you're going into realms that you've not really got any experience in. It's just a kind of idea in your head that you're trying to fathom out. There's always going to be stuff that gets missed or, and that wasn't even really your fault. You had been clear with the information. It was just a question of, next time you need to put in on the headline of the email, please ensure you read all of the email or stick your voucher code is right at the beginning or something like that. But
it was a learning for sure. And then we've modified since how we actually distribute vouchers out to people now because that didn't work too well.
Yeah. No, great though. I mean, what a great story for kind of taking yourself outside your comfort zone as well. I mean, that feels like that's up there with that moment where, have you ever sent an email and copied somebody in that you weren't supposed to copy in, and you just well up from within?
Yeah, your face goes all red, and it's like, is my head going to explode?
I can't believe I just called them an arsehole, and I've sent it directly to them. Yeah.
Well, I hope that sounds like if that's a true story, I hope that's a difficult one to come back from.
No. I've never done that. I never call anybody an arsehole behind their back. It's always just straight to the face.
I didn't think that was in your vocabulary.
No, indeed. No, great story though. Really great story. I'm not going to let you go without kind of caveating that petrification story with something a bit more heartwarming, because there's a lovely story around your first graduation, which you did talk about. So it was one of the best parties you've ever been to. But elaborate. Tell us a bit more about that experience.
Yeah, it was actually, it wasn't quite the graduation party. It was the end of the first week of our first program.
Right. Okay, got you. Yes, no, but it did. I remember reading it and thinking that's a lovely story. So yes, let's, as Graham Norton would say, off you go with your story.
So the first week of the program was, intense, and a lot of work had gone into building up to this kind of launch period, if you like. And typically it was incredibly busy when we were on site at the school. And it was a Friday in the first week, and myself and Lisa, our head of operations, were sat in one of the other rooms. There was a couple of classes going on in the afternoon. It was kind of coming towards the end of the day, and it was pretty chilled afternoon. We were able to do a bit of work ourselves because we weren't actually training, so we were just doing some admin and some emails and stuff like that. And then from one of the classrooms in the distance, we just heard this almighty, what sounded like a ruckus. There was like stomping feet, and our first instinct was like, what the hell is that? And then we heard music and we thought, interesting. So we kind of like ran up to the classroom. I've got a video somewhere of this. Ran up to the classroom, and there was a group of 18 students with one of our trainers, Rosalba, and the entire classroom were just having this big impromptu kind of dance party, just listening to music and just having like just an amazingly organic kind of weird little party. And myself and
hair
Lisa
let
got
down.
involved. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was kind of, for us, it was almost a, okay, this is going to work moment, because we'd gathered 70 plus people, 70 plus students for this school, and no one knew each other, and people's confidence levels, a lot of them had been out of work for 12 months plus. It was a very new environment for them. And so I think in order for people to be successful in education, work, whatever it might be, there needs to be a level of confidence and self-belief there in order
Yeah.
for people to thrive. So when we stumbled into this room and there was just the most kind of joyous, organic party happening, that was a moment when Lisa and I kind of looked at each other and thought, okay,
We're on.
that's the best. We're on here. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
best way to wrap up the first week. And there was no alcohol obviously involved. There was no. It was just this. Yeah, really
Just
natural
high on
moment.
life.
And yeah, high on education and
Yes.
hospitality.
Yeah.
It'll get you high. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really nice, and I don't think I'll ever forget that. Which is
Yeah. I suppose as well, because you would have, to that point, you would have been through so much, and maybe still have little doubts in the back of your mind, is this going to work? And then to see that happen, it's almost like, yeah, okay, right, we can do this. We absolutely can do this.
Yeah, the planning, it's exactly that. The planning, until people are all in the room learning and the actual school is in session, it's all theory from us,
Yeah.
really. And obviously the battle is won and lost, and the careers are made through the quality of the training that they get and the ultimate experience and kind of, I guess, energy that surrounds the whole experience for them.
Yeah.
So when we saw that, our trainer had, I'm not even sure how it came about. I think our trainer maybe just had a great idea. Right, okay, it's Friday. Let's let our hair down a bit. And yeah, it was a real kind of stake in the ground that said this is going to work. And I think we should probably make that on the curriculum. Basically, we'll do a Friday dance party, because it was it's great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Hell yeah, I'll be right along. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring you down. We can get Phil Street to do a set, and he can.
Get the inferior Phil Street, the other one.
Yeah, Phil too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. No, that's great. Yeah, well, I mean, great story so far. Sounds like you're kind of really just getting started with what you're doing here as well. And I think critically, it sounds like you've found a home, like somewhere that really just, as you said earlier on, doesn't really feel like work. You get to do what you do, and it just comes from the heart, and that just makes things so much easier. And yes, you're going to have days that are troublesome, and yes, you're going to have days that just flow, and the usual rules will apply. But it absolutely sounds like you guys are onto something, and that you're moving in the right direction. And if I was wearing a hat, I would take my hat off to you, because I think it's just a wonderful project.
Thanks very much. Yeah, no, it's it definitely is just a start for us as well. We'll have done two programs in London by the end of this year, and then next year we're looking to just multiply that, and just continue to run more and more programs on a bit of a rolling basis. So we'll be basically popping up in London, probably in different locations. So our first program was held over in Hackney, and our second one's going to be closer to central London. And we like the idea of basically kind of almost traveling around to different areas so that we can impact different communities and also different operators in different boroughs of London. That's really what we're looking to do. And I think, as you all know from all the conversations you have and your own experience as well, is that it's never been more relevant, which again just makes it a real treat to be able to work on a project like this, or with a business like this, because it's a time where we can not just impact business operations in a great way, but really kind of change lives at the same time. So yeah, it's really exciting, and can't wait just to keep cracking on with it, to be honest. Yeah, lots of learnings to come and lots of changes to be made, but I think it's the future's really bright for us. So exciting.
Fantastic. Well, a final question before I let you go. What would be your top 3 reasons why somebody should come into hospitality? And this is probably more relevant for you because this is probably a question you have to answer all the time.
Yeah, it really is, and our trainers do a fantastic job of kind of imparting that inspiration, if you like. But I think for me, number one's probably personal growth. I think, obviously moving into any career or any job, you're always going to learn and grow. That's the case the whole with every type of employability. But I think, as we said at the start of the chat, in terms of the way that you can progress and grow in a personal level with hospitality, I think it's just magnified, and that's due to the people you'll meet and the teams that you'll form. I honestly don't think you'll ever be in a team environment, whether it's sports or business, like hospitality, because everyone just has to glue together and they have to band together, and it's difficult and can be nasty, but you'll come out of it the best. And I really think that personal growth journey is huge. I think the parties that you'll have, I think hospitality is great for parties. You'll
legendary, to be honest.
Yeah. And if you're prone to a party, then that's the industry for you. I think travel was good for parties as well. I used to have a lot of fun parties and travel, but hospitality is, well, it's just having a good time. Is it the nature of it again, the essence of it? So yeah.
Plus, there's also that kind of work hard, play hard ethic, isn't there? Really, you can have a tough shift, but you'll be having it surrounded by other people who are having the same experience, and so you can't help but build bonds with people who you're sharing experiences with. And so that when it comes to the time to play, everybody's ready to play.
Yeah. Let your hair down again.
And play they shall.
And play they will.
Yeah.
And I just think you learn a lot about yourself as well. I think, but by meeting tough guests, lovely guests, horrendous guests, and that then it can sometimes be a mirror back to yourself in how you respond to those situations. And obviously, a lot of what we teach is understanding your triggers in a hospitality environment to make sure that if someone does cheese you off, to put it politely, you can respond to that in a way that's palatable. But I think, it's a really good industry for you to understand. If you can be self-reflective for a moment in those, or after a shift, and you say, I reacted to that in a way that was quite interesting. That almost gives you an opportunity to kind of dig into yourself a little bit and have a think about why you acted like that. And I think you could learn again a lot about yourself in that way.
Yeah, totally. And that's ultimately how you grow, is being honest with yourself. We're all human. We all get stuff wrong all the time. It's just how you bounce back from the moments that get you down that will define how much progress you make.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think, for me, the industry is great for that. And I think we're fortunate enough to be in a position where we can talk to people about this every day and get them excited about it. But we know that more needs to be done in terms of finding the right people. I think, people need to look elsewhere from, their normal kind of hiring patterns and hiring strategies. And, whether that's working with there's so many great companies and charities doing similar things to us as well, which I think is really great to see. We're probably the youngest kid on the block, but I think it's inspiring that there are so many different people that have similar ethoses and obviously are incredibly passionate about the industry and don't want to see it have this weird cloud over it, which it has at the moment. I think there's always clouds on some days, but it'd be great to be able to see that cloud shift slightly, and hopefully we're a part of moving that.
Yeah, I think without question you are. Yeah. Great stuff. Okay, well, I mean, if people want to get a hold of you to learn more about you or what you're doing with Saira, what's the best method for them to do that?
So you can, there's a few. You could always email me directly. I'm here to chat to anyone and everyone. Like I say, partnerships are my thing. So I'm at gf@sairahospitality.com if anyone does want to email directly. You can obviously keep up in touch with Saira on social. So we are Saira at Saira Hospitality on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And then the website is www.sairahospitality.com.
Fantastic. Greg, thank you so much for sharing your story. I look forward to seeing what you guys get up to next, and wish you guys all the very, very best.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for having me on. Great to chat with you, Phil.
My absolute pleasure. Take care.
Well,
cheers.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye. And there we have it. An excellent journey so far from Greg, and it's clear that Saira have a wonderful concept. Reach out to Greg directly to learn more about how they can help you. You don't have to wait long for your next instalment of Hospitality Meets, as I'll be airing a cheeky special on Friday at 8 PM. But thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you then.